I will be talking about the episodic novel of The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain. Now let's start with episode 1. The story begins with a fictional character, Huck Finn, living in St. Petersburg, Missouri, along the Mississippi River. Huck is a very uncivilized kid who doesn't go to school and is placed under the guardianship of the widow Douglas and her sister, Miss Watson. Here, they will attempt to civilize him through education and religion. As Huck begins to give in or enjoy this life, Tom Sawyer comes by and helps him sneak out and reunite with his gang. Later, Huck finds his abusive dad, known as Pap, who then takes him to a cabin in the woods. Huck experiences his dad's drunken violence and makes an elaborate plan to escape. This involves making it look like he was killed. Now we move on to episode 2 on Jackson's Island. Once Huck fakes his death, he takes his canoe over to an island that has little to no population called Jackson's Island. Huck hunts and fishes to survive, but quickly grows bored. Days later, Huck finds Jim, the runaway slave who used to work for Miss Watson. They get on their canoe and later find a house floating downstream after a large flood. They go inside the house and Jim finds a corpse but keeps Huck from seeing the body. Later, Huck dresses like a girl named Sarah Williams and goes to visit Mrs. Loftus to get an update on what's happening with the murder of Huck. He learns that Jim is being blamed he ran away. Huck and Jim flee the island on a raft. They find a boat called the Walter Scott, which is grounded with two thieves that are willing to murder a man. Huck and Jim want no part of it and flee again, but get separated in a very dense fog. We move on to episode 3. Episode 3 finds Huck separated from Jim, washed up on the shore of the Mississippi after their raft is struck by a steamboat. Upon being cornered by dogs, Huck meets a boy named Buck Shepherdson. The family of Buck takes him in and houses Huck for a number of days. Later, while talking to Buck, Huck learns of a feud between the Shepherds and a rival family, the Grangerfords. Although this feud has been going on for quite some time, no one knows the background behind it. A gunfight takes place between the Grangerfords and Shepherdsons when the families learn of an elopement between rival family members. Huck escapes and finds Jim, who has repaired the raft. They hastily return to the river. On to episode 4, The King and the Duke. Huck and Jim are on their journey when they run into two criminals trying to escape town. Huck and Jim soon find out that these are con men. The young man is known as the Duke of Bridgewater, and the older man is known as the King. The Duke and the King do many different stunts to try and gain money, including a play. They even try to dress Jim up as a sick Arab. During a play, a town drunk Boggs is killed by a man named Sherburne. Sherburne is then chased by a mob, and the mob eventually plans to capture the Duke and the King. But they escape town just in time. In the next town, the Duke and the King claim to be brothers of a recently deceased man named Peter Wilkes to inherit his property. Huck hides the gold they received in Wilkes' coffin, which was buried the next day. Then, two new men arrive claiming to be the real brothers of Peter Wilkes. The only way to figure out who the true brothers are is to dig up the coffin to discover what the tattoo was on Peter Wilkes' chest. Huck seizes this opportunity to escape, however, he can't find Jim. Episode 5, the finale. Huck eventually finds out that Jim is being kept on a farm that belongs to Sally and Silas Phelps, who are awaiting their new nephew Tom. Tom happens to be friends with Huck. Huck claims to be Tom, and Tom claims to be Sid, in order to fool Sally. They could easily sneak him out, but want to make it more difficult because they always hear of robbers doing stuff like this and want to be like them. Part of this plan involves sending the Phelps an anonymous letter that says that Jim will be stolen. Tom and Huck feel accomplished for stealing Jim, but find out they didn't accomplish much because Aunt Polly delivers the news that Miss Watson had died a few weeks before and said that Jim will be free in her will. That is the end of Huckleberry Finn.